Hey everyone, welcome to the Fundamentals of Architecture Design. My name is Tyler Edlin and I'll be the instructor for this course. And throughout these 8 weeks, we will be drawing a lot of buildings. But we're going to be doing that and so much more. This is going to be a project-based course where each week the students will be given an assignment based from a visual development perspective on the entertainment industry. Each week focuses on using different architectural styles and building mini projects from them that utilize a different design principle. We're going to start out simple, but by the end of the term, students will have a thorough understanding of not only various architectures, but the core design principles and how we can build worlds and scenes with them. This is going to be both a fun and challenging course as we explore the many aspects of visual development, such as production sketches, interior and exterior shots, environmental storytelling, to prop design and layout. So each week we'll be looking at both a different kind of culture and their architectural style, how it works, what are the key kind of forms and shapes, but we'll also be looking at different elements of visual development, design, and so on and so forth. And those can tend to be like, form language, shape language, silhouette designs, patterns, value grouping, prop design, layouts, texturing to referencing strategies. Students will come away not only as better designers, but have a stronger sense of world cultures and understand how the production pipeline works. Students will not only understand the core ideas in creating architectural designs, but they'll be able to craft meaningful ones that are used to sell an idea or a product. Alright, so now I'll give you a brief overview of what we'll be covering and what you can expect. Week 1 we'll be kind of designing, we'll be looking at ancient architecture and designing through silhouettes, starting out really simply, working with the kind of core primitive shapes and using that to kind of build, design language. Week 2 will be identifying, form language through the classical architecture, such as, Greek and Roman things. We'll take a real in-depth look at them, and then look to see how we can build some architecture emphasizing design motifs to kind of create something that's unique and distinctive. And week 3 we'll be using value groups to kind of pitch our architectural designs, because by this point we're already beginning to really kind of draw and articulate scenes at a comprehensive level. So we're going to look at value and how we can push detail or emphasize detail in that regard to sell our ideas. Week 4 we'll be looking at medieval architecture, and we're going to take, assignment-wise, we'll be kind of creating modular tile sets, emphasizing form and texture, what makes, the nobles different from, poor, or where is the middle class lay in, what are the architectural cues that make these things different. And week 5 will be the idea amalgamation kind of phase, and we're going to be basically bridging Indian architecture with something else to kind of create, and that'll be up to you. We'll be creating our own kind of form language and architecture with our shapes, eventually to create our own cityscapes with that. And on the topic of creating cityscapes, week 6 we're going to be taking a closer look at a visual development workflow, so we can take the steps that we can, the proper steps to create our own fantasy settings. How do we build a color scheme from them, or gather the right kind of textures, or how do we modulate again the certain kind of key shapes and repeat motifs. Week 7 we'll be kind of designing a modern scene with that emphasizes environmental storytelling. So we'll take a look at anything that's kind of modern today, Last of Us, The Division. Anything that kind of takes place now in the current day, and we'll be building that sort of scene and adding certain elements. Is it a crime scene? Is it a shootout? Are we at a post-apocalyptic setting of some sort? Are things damaged from a fallout, or are they overgrown? Is there weird alien fungus happen to be just residue that the government's hiding up? We'll be looking to tell a story in the details. And speaking of that, that brings us to week 8. We'll be kind of talking about all the kind of remaining strategies we can come up with to generate believable futuristic based architecture. And that is in the details. We'll be kind of do we want to approach it from 3Ds? Do we want to use different photo inspiration to kind of invent new shapes? It'll all be there. Hello everyone, welcome to week 1, In architecture design, we're going to be talking about designing through the use of and the creation of silhouettes. It's the most basic and easy way to approach design, and you can make a bold statement with less. So basically, I'll give you a brief overview on how this will work. Step one, we're going to be designing the silhouette of whatever we have. It's always good, of course, to know what you're going to be designing before you make a silhouette. Step two kind of comes adding the, filling it out, adding the shapes that make up the greater, the outer edge, defining shape, the silhouette itself. So going in, what's a roof, what's a wall, what's a door, that sort of thing. And then basically from there, we'll be refining them because it's still kind of pretty loose at this point, at least for most of us. So step three is adding the details and fleshing out the design itself. That's where we add in our characters, our motifs, and any other kind of subtle details. We make sure we can sell the scale. And then from there, what in terms of the visual development pipeline, what we can do is begin to build and construct scenes from our designs. So that brings us to the question, for those that are unsure, what is silhouette design? Well, for me, it really is simple, and that's the elimination of any kind of detail, and it's a shape or combination of many of them. And so, what kind of shapes are that we then left with? And that's generally kind of, the basic primitive shapes: circle, square, and triangle. And again, what kind of things we can make up from them. So how does that apply to us, like in the real world and our design senses? Well, for many of us, we can look at this traffic sign in this octagonal shape, and most of us can recognize this as a stop sign. And by association, in comparison, a street sign is usually rectangular and narrow, because we need to look at this first. It's red, so design sense, we're always going to look at something red, and this is iconic within its kind of its own set self. And this is much more kind of subdued, usually kind of green or white or even black, and then we just see a little street name because we want to look here first and then this. But as a whole, you can take these as two separate designs, but they're making up one thing, and it serves a function, right? This is set on the side of the road where we're going to clearly see it. And then then we have traffic lights, which designed by function are created to hang in most cases over the road, so cars can drive under and everybody has an equal view of them. And so, but even by comparison to the stop sign, we clearly can know and understand the differences in terms of the shape and their purpose. And then even the lights that are lit up underneath them can have their own silhouette and shape design. And kind of like lastly, we can identify this in terms of its function and its use as being a street light. We know how we could just look at the shape of this, not even counting some of this, detail we have in there. Even when it's not lit up, we know what it is and how it works. And that's kind of the most important takeaway from this. And this, again, applies to many things, and it applies to anything, really. Architecturally, we know that, this is the Statue of Liberty. We know that this is the Easter Island heads. We know the Mayan, or you will see, this is the Mayan architecture, the pyramids, the new skyscrapers in Dubai, Stonehenge, London Bridge, the Eiffel Tower, the Roman Colosseum, Notre Dame. It's all here. We have Greek, Roman, the pyramids, we clearly kind of its silhouette. Maybe without a little more information on more complex things like this, we don't necessarily know what they were used for, but when we begin to go into doing our research or our reference, we can understand why these individual things were designed the way they were. Again, same with animals. We, as humans, can generally identify things first with motion and then its shape, and that is because of the contrast of everything. We know that these each have their own individual proportions and design motifs, as well as their height and shape differences, and these things all apply to building design as well. In terms of animal design motifs, we know the rabbit's signature trait is the ears. The pig's most signature trait is the nose, right? The pouch and tail and the feet with kangaroos, a rhino's horn, an elephant's trunk, a moose's antlers,
all these things are like kind of iconic design motifs that we'll kind of talk more about later. But they play into the silhouette design and our understanding of them and how they function, or how what these animals do, what they were designed to do, based off on how kind of nature kind of created them and their function. And so how does even, just looking at a great example of this in entertainment design, we have, the game Team Fortress. If we strip all the characters away and we're left just with their silhouettes, it's important to see that why shape design is so important, especially in today's media when everything is just so quick, right? We play games, we watch movies, we see these characters in action bouncing all over the place and even teleporting in and out of scenes entirely on the fly. So it's just invaluable for the viewer to be viewer and player to be able to identify things very quickly visually. So these 9 character classes here, they were each designed to be distinct from one another. And when they're only viewed from silhouette with no internal shading at all, the characters are quickly identified to the player in terms of the body proportions, their weapons, and their silhouette lines as determined by their footwear, their hats, even the folds in their clothing. And and they're really kind of explicitly designed to give each character a unique silhouette. How does this translate to architecture and environments? Well, if we get the research and the reference photos and take into account that this game is based off of 2 team functions, the red team and the blue team, we can look at the design principles for them and the architectural elements that are associated with each of the teams, and they're defined by specific contrasting properties. And they each use warm and cool colors, but the natural materials and angular geometry of them are also simplified and played up in a unique design sense, where blue is definitely more kind of bossy square, the red is more kind of angular and aggressive.
So there's a few basic rules and principles we can follow to not only make good, silhouettes, but that translate into strong designs. And that's we're starting again with the simple silhouette of a house. In this case, a rundown. And what I can do is, when go moving from the first step to the second step, as I had mentioned before, we make up the interior shapes of the larger one. But how does this exactly work? Well, there's a little bit of a formula, and that's we can break this down into big, small, and medium shapes. So again, here's the big shape. It's the primary one, and it makes up the bulk of the mass here. The medium one, we can, for the sake of this example, we could stack that on top, and again, the rest of it's made up by the smaller shapes. So again, this could be. And maybe I could have even broke this up a little bit different in terms of like this could have been actually like another medium shape kind of in here. So again, medium, big, and small. And the rule with this falls into what many consider or call the cake theory. And how this works, you like most things with a cake, you're right. We start with the big layer. We have the medium layer. And then, of course, the small one. And I kind of go with the rules of 3 in terms of the shape. So if I do one big shape, maybe I could do 1, 2, 3 medium shapes, and then maybe like as many as 3 to 5 of the smaller ones. So again, big, medium, small, and here's the quantity of them. If we follow kind of like or break our designs down into like this kind of rubric, it's a good way or a safe, sure way to make sure that this is interesting. Like think of it this way: if we're going to make a composition, right, and do a full scene, a safe way to make a strong composition is follow the rule of thirds. And so this is kind of following in that kind of legacy. And really what this means is that we could take these kind of core shapes and you can rearrange them into any kind of format you want, right? So if we have, let me try to make this, maybe it looks like this. It could be any shape, doesn't matter what they are, as long as we have like a big, a medium, and a small one. And basically what we can do, and according to like the cake theory, is like we could take these kind of core shapes, right, and arrange them, so we have like one building here, we could take these kind of core arrangements and make many kind of possibilities from them, like so. And of course, it changes the design, every time. And it's actually quite a fun exercise in itself. So just that's the mindset I wanted to get you into kind of moving forward.